I'm tired, guys, of LSU getting shit on by guys like Bryan Driskell or Brian Kelly getting shit on like guys like Bryan Driskell. Like, who are you, bro? So when I come out here and say that Florida State is the biggest game on this schedule right now, as of today, it Ingram. Is. Here comes the big ones. Patrick Queen, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Justin Jefferson, Terrace Marshall, Kelvin Joseph, Jamar Chase, Dare Rosenthal, Derek freaking Stingley. You don't have that in Indiana, Brian. You haven't even you don't even remotely have the talent pool in Indiana like LSU does in Louisiana. It's better to recruit here. That's why they will beat you. That's why they have more natties than you in the last 20 years. It's because look at the talent that they get to keep home. Then Bryan Driskell would talk about that Notre Dame had the talent, but Brian Kelly was a bad recruiter. That is in and of itself a very idiotic comment. How do you have the talent when Brian Kelly can't recruit, and then you say he doesn't prepare them well enough? Buddy, you don't have Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Les wasn't Les Miles before he came to LSU. Ed Orgeron was 10-25 before he came to LSU. And you want to justify that those men are better than Brian Kelly. It's not a shot at Les Miles or Ed Orgeron. They're just not a better coach than Brian Kelly is. Let's get to the best part of all this. Because, I did my investigations. Pooh Bear, in this business, you know what it's called. We did our research, right? You have a man in Bryan Driskell from Irish Breakdown who we're going to clip some of this stuff. But you have Bryan Driskell running out here saying that Marcus Freeman could potentially get Notre Dame to a natty. Buddy, first off, he's 0-1 in his head coaching career. 0-1. Well, Blake, he only had 30 days. Sounds good. Doesn't mean anything to me. Because what's he going to do week 1 against Ohio State? How are you going to give him enough time to get recruits in here? And by the way, like I mentioned earlier, this recruiting process for 2023 isn't over yet. Because you went from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6. You keep dropping down those rankings while LSU keeps climbing. The truth is, being a blue blood in college football means absolutely nothing when you kick that football off. It doesn't matter that you're from Michigan. It doesn't matter that you go to Ohio State. It doesn't matter that you go to Alabama. It doesn't matter if you go to Notre Dame. Who has the better players? Who has the better coaching? That is what wins you natties. Notre Dame does not and has not had the talent like the SEC has. So let's look at the national title winners since 2010 when Brian Kelly took over at Notre Dame. Auburn, Alabama twice, Florida State, Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, LSU, Alabama, Georgia. The only team from the North is Ohio State. That means all of the other 120 teams in college football isn't doing what the South is doing. You want to be able to do things, you got to be able to recruit not just at a good level, at an Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, LSU level. You can't do that, dog. Oh, and by the way, the transfer portal changes everything. It changes everything. With Notre Dame's high standards, guys like Greg Brooks, guys like Joe Fouché and others can't go to Notre Dame. It's going to be very hard for them to get transfer portal guys into their university. Brian Kelly can. Brian Kelly can. LSU's on a different level since 2000. You know, so many people give Nick Saban, and which he deserves a lot of high praise for what he did at LSU. A lot of people say that Nick Saban changed LSU, which is true. He was a part of that. You got to give credit to LSU as well for saying, you know what? If we do things financially in football like we did for Skip Bartman, this place is a freaking gold mine. Look at the talent that comes out of this state. A freaking gold mine. LSU made the decision to be great, not Nick Saban. They had to make him the highest paid coach in the country, the first college coach to ever make $1 million as a head coach in college football. You know who paid him? LSU. You're not doing, Notre Dame doesn't have the resources, it would appear, to do and want to do the things that LSU is doing and has done. Look it up. Because before you say Blake doesn't know what he's talking about, we did go and do it. You're not spending $50 million on facilities just to go practice in, just to go hang your helmet in. You're acting like this is something that Notre Dame deserves to be on a pedestal. Notre Dame doesn't deserve to be on a pedestal. The last time you won a natty was 1988. And you want to say LSU's a dumpster fire and Brian Kelly can't turn them around and get them back there. You were a dumpster fire. You sucked. As Kurt Angle's theme music in the WWE is, you sucked. You sucked. You sucked. And no one gave a shit. You crap on Brian Kelly when he turned your entire program and university around. I would love to see an article or a clip from Bryan Driskell in 2020 running out there and saying, fire Brian Kelly. Somebody go find it. I guarantee you, the man in 2020 that held Alabama to the closest game that they would play all season had no business whatsoever being fired.